All right, welcome everyone. We're going to have an absolutely fun time creating this farmhouse style painting out in the countryside where we have beautiful colors, the fall colors. We have a beautiful barn and silo and interesting shadows and fence posts and a nice gravel road going into the scene to carry our consciousness into the scene here. And again, beautiful colors all mixed here. We're going to show you how to mix all the colors. We start out with a real simple color wheel on this palette paper. So we'll show you how to mix all the colors, and then to start with, we'll show you how to do a drawing, a simple sketch, just to get basic design and layout on your canvas, which only takes maybe 15 minutes. Once you get that on, then you're mixing your colors and we're painting. So we'll do this all next. So we'll begin with our pencil drawing next. All right, so we just saw the finished painting, and let's get started on getting our layout and design of the painting started first. I'm using a pencil. I have a charcoal stick around here somewhere, but I think I'm just going to use my pencil. I don't see it right now. So this beautiful scene here, farm scene, with a barn and silo and different buildings and fields and fences and interesting things like this, autumn colors, beautiful blue sky. We have really a wonderful painting here. So let's, we'll say about halfway is where the tops of the barn, or the main barn is, the top of the main barn, and the trees here in the silo. So if we just, sometimes when I tape off my painting, it's hard to see what on camera, and it's actually good to have like a border that you can kind of see like this. And now we're gonna say about halfway. Looking at this here, it's about halfway, so we can just sort of, we have a tree over here. And then I'm just going to make a basic observation that this main barn here is sort of just a little bit to the right of the halfway point of the picture. The same with the road leading into the picture. It's a little bit off center. It's not quite center. So if this is the center, and when I look at the canvas here, and I say that's about halfway, I can pretty much double check myself too and say, well, how close did I get it? By eye, 5 and 5 1/8. So I was only 1/8 of an inch difference between the size of each of these halves. So I'm able to do these things by eye. Most times you can do them by eye. A lot of times it's not so critical to get everything exact, but this is really kind of important to get the road and this side of the barn here, the right side of the barn, a little bit off center, I think. I think that's the way it is in the photograph here, so I'm thinking that's going to be good. So let's do that. So we'll make this off center, and that'll be the edge of the barn. And that's right here next to these trees. So this tree maybe is a little bit over here, and if there's a little bit of space, we can make the trees, we can change the tops of the trees, we can change those, move them around a little bit. We're just sketching in our ideas here. And this will go quick to get our drawing and our rough sketch in, just to get our, so this is the top of the barn. Again, you can use a ruler if you want to keep it really straight and accurate. And the barn's a little bit larger, I think, than this tops of this tree here. So if this is like this, it might be like that. Pretty much straight down like this. And it's just basically an elongated rectangle, the roof. And then the barn comes straight down here, and it looks like the walls of the barn are twice the height of the roof that we're seeing here. The roof, the shingles, the dark shingles on the roof here. So it's approximately twice this width. Could be a little more like this. And there's another tree over here alongside the barn here. Then there's another small, I think I'm going to I think I'm going to put that in. This is the other structure next to the barn. This looks like another extension to the barn over here. It's got a shed roof on it like so. Like that. And this is pretty much all level ground here, so we can just go across like this. So now you can kind of see we have the basic configuration of everything. Also, we could put this small building here. Like that. 2 windows. And this has windows going across. I'm making just indications of windows there. I'll make an indication of a door over here, like that, and maybe a couple windows, like this. And what else do we have? The silo. I'm going to use a ruler. The silo goes a little bit above the top of the ridge of the roof. About probably, I would say it's about almost as much the height of this rooftop here where the dark shingles are. I would say that silo's about not quite as high as that as far as height goes above this ridge line here. So you can kind of see the silo here is going to be just, above that a little bit. And it's a cylinder, basically an elongated cylinder. We could look at that as like, it looks kind of like a beer can, a couple beer cans on top of one another stacked. Or it could be a roll of some sort, like a dowel or a rod, something like that. So it's just, we can think of things as just shapes of things. So when we're drawing something, we don't get too focused on what it actually is, but we could just say, well, that looks like a couple beer cans on top of one another, or that looks, and then it kind of just in our minds takes the pressure off trying to draw it as exactly like we see it. So that's a big help sometimes with drawing, is just kind of seeing things as their basic shapes and maybe relate them to other shapes that we see in nature and in our everyday life, and then it's a little bit easier to render things sometimes like that. And so now we have the road, I think, coming in here like this. It winds up, if we look at it here in the picture, it's actually right about where the silo and that edge of that building is over here. So the road actually is about there. And then it slowly... So now that we got... Yeah, that looks fine. So there we go. We just make that nice smooth turn like that, and it goes in like this, and then comes kind of straight like this. And we have a couple fence posts here that we can draw in like so. Like that. And then we also have in the middle distance here, looks like some bushes and things, fall colors. This might be where there's some, they have some things stored over here, maybe some pumpkins from the field here. Maybe we'll make some pumpkins over here. And some hay bales, a couple hay bales. Basically, they're like just cubes. Almost just like a box, like a packing, shipping box. Some bales of hay. And over here, the same thing. There's some more. Basically, directly across here, we have some bushes. It's kind of nice. It breaks up the field a little bit. The green fields here. These look like pastures. Maybe they have their cows and their farm animals that graze here on these fields. It kind of looks like that. And then here in the distance, we have some, looks like houses behind the trees. So it looks like there's some other houses and maybe some parts of the farm that might have buildings or things of that nature behind the trees and under the trees, sort of. So we don't have to worry too much about that part of the painting. Let's just leave that abstract. This is the main focus here anyway, the barn and the road leading into the barn area. I think that's... All right, I think that's good. So we have our sketch. Our silo, our barn, our trees that go across the picture, right along the center of the picture this way. A nice, beautiful road leading into the picture. We have the light, very, very important. We always, before we start our painting, usually in the beginning, we'll just make the note, where's the light coming from? And then we can really see pretty clearly that the light's coming from this side of the painting, across like this. We can see the light lit, so the silo has that light on the left side. There's shadowing from the fence posts and other trees here that are outside of the picture, but you can see the shadows going this way on the road there. So, and it looks like the sun is probably higher in the sky, not tremendously low. So I don't think it's probably, it could be mid-morning or mid-afternoon. The shadows are pretty long, so usually if you don't see much shadowing, dark shadowing in a sunny day, that would tend to be that the sun is directly up overhead, high in the sky above like this, shining down this way. Here we do see it's coming from this direction, across this way. So we'll just put our light insignia up here, our light icon. So that's our light icon here. And we just make one of those light icons just so that we know whenever we are maybe working on our drawing or our painting and we say, oh, where was that? Where do I have to put the shadow again? Oh, I just look up here and say, oh, that's right, the light's coming from here. The shadow will be on the right side of the subject matter in the painting. And that's really it. So we have some hash marks. We could have made one here just to say that this was about the halfway point there, and this is the halfway point across the picture this way. And then we have our other hash mark. This was the barn. Right side, right edge of the barn. And then anything else that we kind of, that was pretty much about it. And then over here too, we did say that this was the edge of the road. This one's, yeah, it's still on the camera here. All right, so perfect. Let's get some paint mixed up and start the painting. All right, so now that we're going to start the painting process, let's squeeze out some paint. So I have my Artisan, Winsor Newton Artisan paints. And the first thing we can do is just look at the painting, the photograph quickly, and ask ourselves, what are the predominant colors we're seeing here? And it's really pretty, I think, straightforward. The predominant color is definitely blue. That's going to be the majority of the colors in the sky, with a little bit of purple. And we have some white there for the clouds, and the barn is white. So blue, white, and then we have a lot of green. So blue, white, and green are really the main colors in this, with, you know, some violet, some purple. And then also, too, we have little bits of like red and yellow, orange for the foliage. It's like autumn now, early autumn in this picture. So I think that's what we're going to focus on, is getting the main colors here. So I'll take some of the French ultramarine blue right in the center here. Let me see how on the camera here, looking pretty good. Okay. I just have to be aware of my where my viewfinder is on my camera. It always changes with every painting, so I just have to make sure I'm in the... I don't want to start mixing colors outside the picture frame. And you can write down your colors too at the top of your palette or the bottom of your waxed paper. This is palette paper, and incidentally, all of all the art supplies I use, whether it's my paints, pencils, pens, my boards, my canvas boards, whatever it is, tape, I have that all down below, links in the comment section below, so you can just click on those links and find those on Amazon. I pretty much buy all my art supplies on Amazon. And, you know, it saves me a ton of time, and the prices are good, and I can shop around, too, for other things if I need to, but that's what I do. So I have blue, and I'll also mix in a little bit of the cerulean blue there, too. And we're also going to... we'll need a little bit of red for the fall colors here, so we'll put some red over here, and I'll just make this like the color wheel. And some yellow. So yellow I'll put up here. So this is basically our color wheel right here on the canvas. And, you know, we didn't have to put maybe this as much red and as yellow. We probably didn't have to add that much to the palette here, because you can see it's not that much, but it's good to have it on the palette. We might need it. To make our green, we're going to need some of that yellow to make the green, so we're going to use quite a bit of that yellow. And we can also add, you can also, again, double up on different colors within the same family of color. So if this is a yellow, well, this is a yellow too. So yellow ochre and cadmium lemon yellow are both yellow, you know, in the yellow family. So we could put those together like that. And you can also maybe use a little bit of alizarin crimson too over here with this red. So you can expand your color wheel a little bit, make it a little more diversified, but you don't need to. You could just use 3 colors. So you could use either cadmium red, cadmium lemon yellow, and French ultramarine blue, or you can just use cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, and yellow ochre. So you can, you know, you can make your palette colors whatever you like them to be. You work with these colors, you find which ones you like the best. Maybe you want to always use a lot of variety for your color wheel. Maybe you don't. I don't know. It's up to you. You're the artist. You'll figure that out. I'm going to try to make it a little diversified, although sometimes I will keep it pretty simple and just use like three colors. And then what we'll do is we will grab our brushes here. We have some, I use these are Princeton brushes. They're kind of student grade brushes. They work great. They're synthetic, easy to clean up, and we're using water mixable oil paints too, which is great. This artisan line of colors and paints is water mixable, so you don't need to use any solvents like paint thinners or turpentine or anything like that. You can mix these paints with a little touch of water if you want. Damp brush. Usually I just paint straight with the paint and I don't really mix in too much water, just a little bit like a damp brush. But you can thin it down if you want with water. It cleans up with water. Soap and water you can clean your brushes with if your brushes get a little bit you know, you want to clean up your brushes, keep your brushes in good condition, so you use soap and water, that's fine. And that's all you need. It's kind of like watercolors pretty much. And I use fresh, clean water in my water bucket, and that's it. And then we'll have some paper towels on hand, tissues. I usually wear an apron just so that I can, clean my hands or my brushes on my apron. But let's start mixing our color wheel, though. That's the first thing. Let's take our colors. Sorry about that. I have a cold. So we can take a little bit of water off our brush once we rinse it on the paper towel, and then we can look at our color wheel. I usually have this color wheel across from me in my studio, or right in my working station here. So I'm just going to basically mix the colors just like this so that I get my secondary colors, which would be the orange, the green, and the violet. So I'll have it across from me. And I'll just start with orange. And what I do is I usually, if I'm going to mix an orange, I'll take the lighter colors first here. The lighter colors first, which is the yellow. Lighter in tonal value. So if we're looking at it as if, just like if it's dark or light, this is a lot lighter than the red. So I use this first, then I add in a little bit of the darker red. And I see how that looks with making an orange. And that looks good. That, to me, is a good orange. That looks good. Okay. Then I rinse the brush. Take off a little bit of the water. We'll make our green. I'll take the lighter color. We're gonna make quite a bit of green here. And then I take a little bit of that darker blue and mix that together and see what happens. And then you can just add more yellow if you want it to be a lighter green, or you add more blue if you want to make it a darker green, a cooler green. But that to me looks really good. That's like I like that a lot. That looks good. That's like an olive green. That looks fantastic to me. And then we'll make our violet. Rinse off our brush one more time. And then we dry off the brush a little bit on the paper towel. Then we'll come over here. We'll go with our lighter color first. Maybe we'll use a little bit of alizarin crimson now. All right, I'll go over that in a second. A little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of the cadmium red, and a little bit of both of these blues. And that looks like a really good purple. And the easy way to tell is to just rinse off the brush. Good. And then we dry off a little bit of the water, and then we can just take some of that and now that purple looks a little bit toward the red side, so we want to add a little more blue to this. It's hard to tell sometimes when it's the thick paint. Okay, so now we've added in a little more blue. Rinse off the brush one more time. Good. Dry off a little bit of the water. That's more like violet. That's, to me, is a good violet. Right in between the red and the blue. And this was a little more like, this is like our blue violet. Or I'm sorry, the red violet. This would be red violet here. So we can already say that we have our tertiary color there, red violet. So now I'm working on the tertiary colors, which are the colors on the outermost of the color wheel. Red violet's here. Blue violet we can make next. We have our violet right now, right here. We mix that. So let's make our blue violet. And that's a little more blue mixed with the violet. Okay, blue violet. Rinse off the brush. And you can reference this. Reference this. I have a video. If you just check my my other videos on this channel, you'll see I have the color wheel, and you can reference that, and you can get the colors mixing and see how the colors are all mixed together. I go through it in detail, slowly, and so right now I think we have all the colors that we need. We have a little bit of purple for the sky, violet, plenty of blue. We have lots of green for the grass. And I think we have reds and oranges for some of the foliage, fall colors. Let's start off with the sky. I'm going to use a larger brush. For the sky, I'm going to use this. This is a number 10. Same thing, Princeton. It's the Aspen line of brushes. We have a large sky here. Let's get this brush into the process here. I'll empty out my water. I like to empty out my water when I'm mixing all of my colors first on the palette. And then once I have that done, I'll empty the water, add new, fresh, clean water. This way we have the water's not that muddy. And then we'll dampen our brush here. And we're going with thinner washes to start, and then when we go thicker. So we'll do a light blue wash for the sky first, glazing, and then we can do the white clouds on top of that with thicker white paint. Because the theory is with oil painting, you put your first glazes on your canvas very, very lightly, very, very thin. And then from there, we can go thicker on top of that. So we'll get our blue here. And we can add a little green into the blue if we want, and maybe a little bit of some of that red. But it's going to be a pretty bright blue. Let's see how it starts looking. And this is where you have fun. Just get that glazing on your painting. That beautiful sky. And you can using a very large brush for this. You don't want to be trying to, paint this sky with like a brush like this, Definitely want to use the largest brush you can when you're painting. That's a good rule. So if you were working in a smaller size canvas, then you would use the smaller brushes, definitely. But since we do have this larger painting here, and the sky is usually darker up top, and I'm just going to and then as it comes down closer here, it's lighter. And we'll use some of that lighter blue. And I can paint over the roof because the roof is actually going to be very, very dark. And the tree, same thing. If you go over the tree edges, that's fine. We can even give the whole... I'll rinse off my brush really well. And then I'll just thin this and we can just add that really light blue all the way across, right into the grass too, and the road. So now I'm just doing a very thin, just a little more water, less paint, to cover the entire canvas with that light blue. That gives the whole canvas like a cool touch to it. And that'll be fine. I might go in and if I see like anything like imperfections that like brush marks, I'll just go in and kind of fix them up now. And that's pretty much it. Now what I would do is I would let this sit for a little, maybe an hour. I would let this sit for like an hour and let it just set up a little bit and kind of dry a little bit. And then this way, when we go over with our other washes of paint on top of this, it's going to be a little easier. It'll handle a little better for us as we paint on top of this first glazing. So this would be a perfect time if you wanted to wait a little while, like an hour or two, and then come back and start painting again. That's fine. You can also just go right in and start painting right now. You can do that too. But it might be a little better if it just sits for a little while. So I'll let this sit for just a little while, and I'll come back and we'll finish up the painting. We have a lot done. We have the sketch all completed. Good work on that. And then we have the full first glazing over the whole entire canvas, which is great too. And then we'll have to get in our other color mixes and we should be good. All right, so we're going to pick back up again. I let this sit for about an hour, and I'm going to actually, I think for some of the darker darks, I'm going to maybe just add in a little bit of burnt umber here. And this is, I'll put that up top here. That's sort of by the top of the palette here. That's kind of in the earth tones, the golds and so forth. And I'm going to I'll probably switch over now to my number 4 brush here. And then I'll go for the darks first. I'm going to go to get my darker bits of color and see how it goes from there. But it's always good if we get the sky in first. That gives us the whole setting of the painting. And then once I complete that, I'll go in and get some of the darker darks. So that would be, we're going to make our roof quite dark, so we're going to go with the, I'll mix this up here, blue, a little bit of brown, blue and a brown, and then a little bit of the, maybe some red, green, and I'll just start. And this is great. Flat brushes are great for architecture. And then I just work that paint down to the edge of the roof, where the eaves of the roof are here. We'll put a shadow under there. And maybe a little bit of an angle on this part of the roof over here. Okay, and then there's some darks over here. So the trees are quite dark. So I'll go in and maybe work on some of the darks I see where the trees are. And I'll just mix more of that same burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, a little bit of the green, a little bit of red. And again, I know I did see there's some shadows and darker, maybe bushes and some hedges and things. And there's shadows too over here, underneath here. But the thing is, if you can see in this photograph, it's sort of, if you see things that are really hard to make out the details of, just kind of leave it very loose and abstract. Like just go in and let's make sure we just have some lights and darks kind of happening there. Across there, and there is a dark almost like a dark line that goes all the way across there. So that's what I'm going to try to have in this. And the light is coming from, again, this direction. So this side of the tree, this side of the trees will be a little bit more lighter in color, in the greenish color, greenish reds. So again, we can add a little of orange. Maybe I just kind of put a little bit of orange here in the color. Same thing over here, although this is lighter. So let me keep working on some of the darks here. There's a dark shadow over here. There's another dark shadow over here as well, along the side of the silo. And then the silo on this side over here is in shadow. So I will just and then I'll rinse off the brush, dry off a little bit of the water, just so I have a damp brush. And I'm just going to take this and just maybe make the shadow on this side. And we'll make it a little neater later. And there's another bit of shadows over here where the roof is. And the same thing here. I see a bit of darker darks here. So you just work a little bit at a time. I think that's the best way to do it. If you need even a smaller brush to get finer details, we can pick up our round brush. So this is a really good pointy brush. You can get some of those darks too, and then get those areas that you want to get maybe more exacting detail, like a square window or two. These here are and then you can carefully square them a little bit. I think that looks good if we get the top square, kind of like a little bit of a line across the top there, like that. That gives it that looks better. And there's a door over here. I'll set that brush aside for now, and let's keep working on let's start getting in some of these greens here for the trees, and some red and orange, fall colors. And again, I'm having a fun time here, getting in these colors. And the tops of the trees are a little more of the gold and red and orange at the tops here, where the light is. And then more darker shade down here. And I try to blend in those reds and yellows into the green. And that looks pretty good. I think we are having things looking good now. At this point, we have the other tree over here that's along the and that's where we make, again, a little bit of that green, orange, and red. And then over here, just some very light indications of some trees in the back. And that's probably a field further back. We can make that cooler. So we could take some of the blue. I would rinse my brush off. We have lots of thick paint on the brush right now. Now we rinse off the brush, dry off the brush. So that's just a damp brush at this point. And then we pick up a little bit of blue. And we make the distant field over here cooler. So like a bluish color. And we might have to get a little thicker paint now because that's good. All right, and next we will to cover a little larger area. Maybe we'll pick up our larger brush now. It's a number 10. And let's just get the paint on there. Let's mix up some more. We're going to need some more. Well, let's see how far this goes here. So we have some and you can change your colors. You can make it more. And don't be afraid if you need more yellow. We'll just put some more yellow here and see if we can get so that's still too well. I like the gold color. Maybe we'll just leave this kind of a golden color here. We'll mix up some more green too. I want to mix some green into this, a little more green. But you can just see how, and we'll come back. We'll just paint over this here. We'll make those fence posts later, so we're not really concerned too much about the drawing. We're going to refer back to our photograph to put in those fence posts, so we can paint over those like this. So I'm just going to get this all painted in here. I'll put a little bit of that golden color on the roadway there. And I'll just scrub the rest of this here onto the paper, onto the canvas here. And that looks good. I just want to make some more green here. Have a good time, scrub away, get that paint on there. There's some light spots. I make the fields with the brush strokes like this, like that. And then next I'm going to rinse off the brush well. plenty of room on the canvas. I just want to see if I can get a more brighter green. I'm just going to need more. I have to use thicker paint now, so I have to add more. Okay, that looks good. And I just want to get that green here in the fields a little bit. And that's really and then with that, I definitely want to, I will go to the smaller brush again, and I'll get some of that green, and I'll just try to put a little bit of that in the, just little dabs of it here and there, so that it kind of all blends together, and you'll see the green grass, the color of the green field here. We're going to have that same green up in the trees. That's really what kind of makes everything tile together and become there's a harmony to the colors when we use the colors everywhere in the painting. So if we just put the green, does this make sense? If we just put that green color we just mixed now just in the field, it would look like sort of out of place. It would look like we just took another tube of paint and added some paint somewhere on the painting, and it wouldn't kind of tie in to the rest of the painting. But now that we have added that green to the and that is it. I think we're good. We're just going to add those fence posts in a few minutes. I'll take another break, if you don't mind. I'll take a quick break just to relax a second. And but I think we might add a few shadows. We'll come back and just do a few things that I think will be just enough details and finishing up ideas that'll make everything kind of like just come together perfectly. All right, so we're going to start wrapping up our painting with some details, with some fence posts here. So we're going to, maybe we won't make as many. We'll see how it goes. I'll put some white on the palette paper here. And before I do that, I'll maybe look around the painting just a little bit and see if I'll put some fresh water in my water bucket. All right, so I'll rinse off my brush, dry off the water. And I wanted to get some of that blue dark under here. And just to get some more of that shadow over here. And also I'll just start looking around at the painting and kind of see. I wanted to use a damp brush and see if I can just bring this color over to the other side of this silo here. So the silo is kind of a golden color, as you can see over on the left side, and then the right side of the silo is pretty dark. So we could add some a little bit of blue and burnt umber. Blue, burnt umber, and maybe just a couple hints of some darks there. And at this point too, you might need to use like a sometimes I'll use just a dowel, a wood dowel, and I can rest my hand on it. I'm used to painting in watercolor a lot, so watercolor usually you can rest your hand or your, usually things dry pretty fast with watercolor, so you can almost, a lot of times you can be working with your hand resting on the paper a lot of times. But not with oils. Oils they take a long time to dry, days, sometimes longer, weeks. And then we can do a little bit of round, just a couple of these small, kind of like slightly rounded marks on this silo, and that will give us the little bit of detail we need, and we'll just do the same over here on the dark side of that. All right, now I'm going to keep working some more details, a little bit of purple for the shadow under here. And I'll mix in a little bit of gold in that purple too. A little bit of white here. So now I can just do a little bit of fine detail. And I'll add just a little bit of golden color along the horizon line, mixed in with that white just a little bit. So that's a little bit of white with a little bit of the gold color there that we use for the fields here. And that also does a great tie-in for the painting with the color. So if we can get a little bit of the foreground colors and middle distance colors into the sky a little bit, just a smidgen of it does work to tie the colors together in this painting. I think that's going to be good for that, for the sky. And I was looking at some other things here. There's a shadow, purple, maybe a little bit of brown mixed with the purple, a little bit of gold, like this. And I wanted to get a shadow along the side here. Let me see if I can just do that. So that's a shadow there. Maybe a shadow over here. There's some darks along this road here, the edge of the road. Looks like a cinder stone road, or a maybe like a gravel road. So that's kind of cool. That's I'll do a little bit of edging to the road just to give it a little more definition. I think it's and then we said we would do a little bit of orange. I think we might leave this more simplistic, this painting. I don't think I'm going to go with a lot more details. I think I'm going to leave it as it is, really, except for the fence posts. Let's do the fence posts here. I thought I would do these details here, like the hay bales and things like this, but I feel like I just want to leave it more simplistic, the composition. But you could do that if you wanted to. You can, again, I always mention you're the artist, as you're painting in oils. We're working together here. My ideas, or just we're working together. I'm kind of showing you my methods and techniques of how I'm going to create my oil paintings, and then from there you can expand upon my ideas and say, well, I'd like to have more details here in my painting, and you can do that. You can add different things. You could maybe say to yourself, I'd like a couple, maybe some clouds, maybe some white clouds in the sky. That might look good too, up above here. But it's all up to you. Or you could diminish things. You could take things out that you don't like in the painting. You might say, there's too many trees over here. I want to remove some of the trees and just maybe have one or two smaller trees over here. So you can adjust your painting to suit yourself, and don't ever feel like you have to stick to one game plan like 100%. So now I'm just going to take this white and take a little bit of the gold, mix it in with that white. And then also a little blue. So we'll have some cool white and warm white here. Okay. And I'll start here, and I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to make the fence post like this. So, a square brush or a flat brush. And I think we can get it done this way. I might go the opposite way. For some reason, I started my first fence post a little bit too far this way. So now I'm just going to make this other fence post the next one here. Maybe I start there. And maybe this one's up a little higher. That. And what I'll do is just really start to make them thinner as they go this way. And then at some point, I'll just really make them just diminish like that, so you can barely see them now. And then we'll do more paint. And I'll take some of that paint off my brush, because now we're going to do these over here, which are kind of in the distance, which is interesting. So I'm going to put one of them maybe about here, like this. And we'll go with another one here. Then one over here. They're going to get thinner now, so we make them thicker over here, wider. A little bit wider and then a little thinner as we go. Like that. And then as we do this, then we can pretty much take mostly all the paint off the brush and then just slowly, almost no paint on the brush, and see if we can just make this sort of like just fade into the distance here. We don't want to make a big deal of the fence posts. And that should be good. I also wanted to take a little bit of warmth. So I'm going to take some of that warm white and we did go over the barn with a really cool wash with the sky. I'll leave some of that cool color toward the bottom of this here. That gives us that cool feeling of near the ground level, where it's really close to the ground. You're going to have cooler colors. It'll also have some green there, and we'll put some green into the mix. And if you paint over a window, no big deal. You can go back in and paint the window back in again. If you go over something, no big deal. And I might use my rod again here just to be able to get a little more exacting brush strokes in here, because, and again, you can paint your windows in if you want to. Okay. So we'll touch that up, and then I did mention let's get a little bit of that golden color, the green color too. Let's do some of that greenish gold, like this. I'm hoping I can, yeah, I don't know if what I'm doing is I'm actually just taking some of that green here with a little bit of the gold. And now I'm going to add some of that to just a little tiny bit to the facade here, the sides of the barn, because that color is going to reflect up into the white barn. So if you add in some of that warm color back into that white of the barn, that's going to look really, really good. And let me see. I might get that very, very small brush again to get a few more details. Just to get those windows back in there a little bit. It's got to be thick paint though. At this point in time, you almost have to use very, very thick paint and put quite a bit on your brush, because since we have thick paint now on the barn, that thin paint won't really stick. You have to use, that's where we're always saying we paint thin when we start, the thinner glazes when we start, but then now when we're finishing up our finishing touches, they have to be more thicker paints, and we need a little more thicker paint at that point. We could put a little, I'll rinse off my brush here. We could put a little bit of warm light over here in the tree areas, under the trees here. I think a couple little sparkles of light, maybe right over in this area here. This seems to be a really good focal point for the painting. Right along here maybe. This could be the top of a barn, the roof of a barn over the hill. So that's what we're kind of thinking here. This is sort of like this road actually is going to have a hill over here in the distance that goes over, and that would be another barn over here, the roof of another barn like this over here. But we don't see the bottom of the barn because, you know, it's a hill there. So we can make up a story as we're painting, as we're working out our ideas in the painting. That's always helpful. As we're thinking of ideas, we can, and again, I'll put a little bit of that warm white just over here and a couple dabs. We could also get our larger brush again, our larger flat brush, rinse it off good. Dry it off on the paper towel really well. Now it doesn't have to be perfectly clean or anything like that, because we're going to go in and mix a dark now. We're going to get some blue and burnt umber and some red. Like this, and make a good dark like this. Then we're going to take our brush and try to get like a nice chiseled edge on it like this. So if we can see that. This brush might have too much. This brush is actually too thick. The hairs of this brush are very, very thick. I don't think we can get the, I want to make some wires here on the fence posts. So what I'll do is I'll go and take this brush, which is our smaller flat brush, this one here, and if I just get some paint on there, dry off a little bit of the paint, and let's just see if we can get some, just a few little hints of some wire here. But I would dry off the brush really good with I wouldn't put too much paint on the brush at this point, very, very little. And then we just put a couple. Just a little bit of like that. Then even maybe a little bit of warm light. Just a tiny little dab there. That's almost like light hitting the wire, and we could lift it up if it's just a matter right now of not going too overboard with the details, and I think that's plenty good enough. All right, let's call this one finished, and we can always wait a couple days and maybe add just a few more details that we might want. But I think this is plenty good. I think we accomplished the basics of this scene. We made it a little less busy, let's say. So we kind of made the painting to suit our own look that we wanted to. So I wanted to have more of a plain look to it with not as much details. Again, you can do more details, you know. You could put the hay bales in and pumpkins, or you can really create and be in, you know, as creative as you would like with a painting like this. But I just wanted to get the basics in, kind of show you the basics of how we're getting this completed. Only one more thing we could do, I just noticed, with a blue and this darker color over here, blue. We did see some shadows, so this will be really good. This will really make the light in the picture a little more interesting. So we get a couple light, shadows in there along these fence posts here, and the shadows are darker next to the post, and they get lighter as they go away from the post. And then as we go here, you'll see I'll dry my brush off again. Almost no paint left on the brush, so that we can diminish these shadows and just make them sort of visible, but almost not visible. But, we can see that they're there. But that kind of is one of the things that helps the painting look realistic, is you won't see all those like dark shadows in the distance. You're just going to see these shadows here are going to be, you'll see these closer, like this. And you could even add in some shadowing along here. I don't think I necessarily see that shadow there from the silo, but I will put it in there. And a little more here along this side of the barn over here. There's like this barn here. So I am going to try to see if I can add a few interesting shadows along the base of the building. And there's some shadowing here for these trees, maybe a little bit there going across the road. Over here we might see that shadow like that. And these trees over here as well might have a few shadows there. Okay, and I think that's about as good as we're going to have without going overboard with the details, and then kind of it becomes too busy and too many small details in the painting will actually take away from the painting itself. So that's a good place to leave it. We'll actually move our phone up here. We'll put that up here, and we'll remove the tape and kind of just take a look at it isolated with a nice crisp clean border. All right, so we'll peel off the tape. And you'll see that it looks so much better when we have a nice crisp white border around it. It's like it's matted or framed right away for us. That'll always make your paintings much more enjoyable. When you're finished painting, when you're peeling off the tape and you're seeing the border around it, the way it would look like when it's framed and matted and framed. It's usually just framed with oil paintings. and we had a great time painting. So thank you so much for joining along. We're going to be doing lots more paintings just like this. Every other week we get together. So we'll see you very, very soon, and happy painting, everybody.